This is Wildcat Country.
It's only right. The ball's in his hands. A milestone victory for Arizona. Simon says championship.
All the inside scoop on U of A athletics.
It's up for the end zone. Arizona has scored the touchdown. Wildcats win.
Let's go to work, brother.
Welcome to another edition of Wildcat Country, powered by Backcourt Marketing. I'm Eric Cohen, along with Shane Dale, as always, and it's kind of a weird week, Shane. In a way, I'm conflicted. I'm sad because our college football season is over, and I'm happy because, our men's team is number 11, and our women's basketball team is number 7. So in a way, it's a great thing, and we have a great show talking all three of these sports. Ryan Anderson, who is a former Wildcat basketball player, now a grad assistant for the men's basketball team, going to join us here on the program in the second segment. Then our buddy Jeff Dean, who is the voice of Arizona Stadium and McHale Center, going to talk a little football and men's basketball and make some picks with us in the third segment. And before we get going, Shane, and recap the Territorial Cup, I just want to thank our sponsor, Backcourt Marketing, who's staying on with us throughout basketball season and beyond. We're so glad to have them. And if you had a chance the other day, check out the Cat Country AZ Twitter feed. They had some awesome tweets come from their Backcourt Marketing Twitter that got some really good response. So take a look at that. We are very glad to have them as a sponsor and our social media associate here with Wildcat Country. But okay, Shane, let's get right into it. The football game on Saturday, 38-15 ASU. Our predictions were fairly close. Give me a few thoughts.
Well, first, Eric, I thought you were going to say that you're sad because college football season is over, but you're happy because college football season is over. It was rough.
Yes.
It was rough.
Yes.
So, there aren't a lot of Territorial Cup games that go the way I really pictured that they would go in my head because it's just an unpredictable game. This one did. This one pretty much went the way we thought. Arizona kept it close for a little while, and then reality set in. The floodgates open. Arizona just is not nearly as talented as ASU. They play with more effort, but that gap was just too big. Arizona is not good enough to overcome mistakes, whether it's turnovers. And the 2 turnovers they had were just like 2 of the worst you've ever seen that directly led to 14 ASU points, and that was the difference in the game. Too many penalties, red zone failures again. I think 5 or 6 red zone trips, 1 touchdown. That's just awful. And I said before too, Arizona's not good enough to overcome Pac-12 officials. There was an awful non-call on a blatant hold on Jaden Daniels' touchdown run, which didn't decide the game necessarily, but you factor all those things in and you get the final score. So I know you were there. You braved the circumstances at Sun Devil Stadium. I was back here watching and I was able to turn it off when I didn't like how things were going. I switched over to Bama Auburn in the fourth quarter, admittedly. Not disappointed in the effort. I haven't been disappointed in the effort all season. That's never been the issue. The talent just isn't there. I'm still optimistic about the future. I'm glad that Arizona got 1 win, so we don't have to hear about that losing streak for the next 8-9 months. And we got this out. We knew it was going to be painful. We knew the season was going to be painful. It was probably even more so for different reasons, including injuries, back-to-back season-ending injuries to quarterbacks. It's out of the way. It's over. We'll have to see who Arizona replaces Don Brown with. As of this recording, they haven't named a replacement. They'll probably name one as soon as we get this on the web. But I'm optimistic about the recruiting efforts of this coaching staff has done. I think they're going to add some more big names before next season. And I think the real test for Jedd Fisch starts now.
Shane, it was very interesting being at Sun Devil Stadium. I thought the entire atmosphere was apathetic on both sides. I didn't get crap from one Sun Devil fan in attendance. Everybody was very...
Their fans are miserable too, which is kind of crazy because they won 8 games, but they're miserable too.
8 games, but this was their most talented team in 25 years. And so it was a disappointment. Yeah. I'd love for a disappointing season to be 8 games for Arizona. That just seems like a lifetime away. It was what it was. I thought Will Plummer had some good moments. The first drive of the game, they go down and, made a couple of big plays. Dorian Singer made a couple of big plays and then get down there, couldn't score in the red zone. And
I'll tell you one of the biggest plays of the game, in my opinion, was the long pass to Dorian Singer where he got tackled, I think, at the 5-yard. I think he actually got tackled close to the 2 or 3 yard line, and it was a bad spot. But when he didn't score, like if he scored on that play, I think it could have been a completely different game especially in terms of momentum and how big that was. So he gets tackled to the 5. And the first thing we're all thinking is, well, you might as well sit on the field goal unit now.
Yep.
Because that's just how it's been. They got down to the 1. Of course, they had the false start penalty. It's the same old story all season long. And that was the epitome of the Wildcat season, unfortunately.
Yeah, it was. Gave us some hope, and then they did what we thought they would do. And you're right. That was pretty much that first drive was the epitome. And I was standing in that end zone for that first drive. Just kind of walked around the stadium. It was just one of those games where it was like, yeah, I don't need to sit there in my seats and watch every game. I'll just walk around. And I will say this, as much as I don't want to compliment anything ASU, they have made Sun Devil Stadium way better than it used to be.
They have.
It's light years better. All right, let's do what we have done. Our newest segment, Shane, it's called Buy or Sell. So let's get into it. Number one, with a very tough schedule next year, including now you have non-conference games at San Diego State, who could win the Mountain West, against Mississippi State, was ranked for a while, and North Dakota State, who's generally one of the best FCS teams. Plus you have now with Lincoln Riley coming into the conference at USC, among other things. It's a brutal schedule. I'm putting the over under at 3.5 games. Are you buying the over, Shane, or are you buying the under?
Well, I'll buy the 3.5 for sure. I think that's exactly where it should be. As far as whether they should be over or under, I'm not sure yet. I would put it exactly at 3.5, though.
Okay.
I think they're certainly capable of winning more, especially if they get a good quarterback in, whether it's Jordan McLeod returning or Noah Fafita as a true freshman or a transfer that, there's several out there who may or may not be possibilities for Arizona. I think 3.5 is right where it should be. I'll do this. I'm going to buy where you have your 3.5. Mm-hmm. I'm going to hold serve. I'm going to hold serve. I'm going to hold off on picking the over under until we see a little bit more in the offseason, including who the next defensive coordinator is going to be.
Yeah, and we will talk about that extensively on next week's show. And let's get into, and we're going to talk about obviously the roster construction often over the next 6+ months. But let's go to number 2. Next year's starting quarterback for game number 1 at San Diego State is not currently on the roster. Buy or sell?
I will reluctantly sell because I think Jordan McLeod might be the guy if he's healthy. I think I could certainly see the week 1 being on the depth chart being Jordan McLeod 1 and Noah Fafita 2. Now, it wouldn't shock me, a program like Arizona, which is still in dire straits in terms of talent, maybe they have a true freshman and Noah Fafita starting right away. That could absolutely happen. But I think I saw enough out of Jordan McLeod in as small a sample size as it was to believe that he gets healthy, he gets more reps with this in practice before the season. I think he could be the guy going in. So for that reason, as of now, I'm going to sell, and you can play this back to me in a couple months and show how wrong I was.
I'm going to buy this one, Shane. I don't think Arizona's starting quarterback is on the roster. I think Jordan McLeod is going to be a nice backup. I think Noah Fafita probably a year away. Redshirt him, give him a chance to get into college practices and such. I think Arizona goes out and tries to get a guy like Jack Miller, who is a Scottsdale kid, just transferring from Ohio State. I know he had I think it was a DUI or DWI the other week, so that doesn't necessarily help his cause. But I think Arizona goes the transfer route, and that quarterback is starting week 1 next year, beats out Jordan McLeod in fall camp. So I'm going to buy that, and we will see about that. Number 3, next year's Territorial Cup against ASU is Jedd Fisch's day of reckoning. This will determine the future of the program. Buy or sell?
I think it's a conditional situation. I have to give a buy or sell. I'll say sell because I think it's as big as that game is. There's 11 others, and there's a lot of like if Arizona, scores a big win at San Diego State and they upset USC, I think you can forgive a Territorial Cup loss. But if Arizona is 2-9 going into that game, and then that win can put a Band-Aid on a lot of things, and Jedd Fisch can still say, hey, we're going in the right direction going into year 3. If they've won a lot of games already and ASU is a good team as well, then I think you can excuse it, even though it would be miserable to lose yet another game, a 6th straight game to ASU. But I think it's way too early. I think if you asked me at the beginning of the season, it would be too early to say that it's a make or break game.
I'm saying bye. I don't think you can lose 6 in a row to your rival. This is not Jim Harbaugh in Michigan. And I know Michigan got over the hump this year. Arizona has to win this football game. They need to circle it right now. Jedd Fisch needs to be talking about the Territorial Cup. This is after 70-7 and a relatively uncompetitive second half in Tempe this past weekend. That game is a must. If they go, as you said, 3-9, but one of those is ASU, I get it. Okay, I'll see some optimism. If they are 6-6 and one of them is a loss, my optimism is going to be there, but it wouldn't be as much in a weird way. You have to win that game. You cannot lose 6 straight to ASU, who is a team that is honestly going on the decline. They're going to get some sanctions. And that is Jedd Fisch's day of reckoning, in my opinion. That's why I came up with that kind of phrase.
Did you see my bold prediction, which is probably going to end up being a stupid one on Twitter, that Arizona would be favored to win that game next season?
Oh, I did not see that.
I did see that. My prediction is that Arizona will be favored to win. Not that they will win, but they'll be favored to win because I do think ASU is going to be on the decline. If you look at their recruiting class, it's the cupboard's pretty bare right now.
I would sell that. I would sell that prediction.
Okay, well,
I think ASU will be favored,
and that's fine. But and of course, if Spencer Rattler ends up going to ASU, which is he's the heavy favorite in Vegas. There's actually Vegas odds on it.
Yeah,
then that can change things. But that is my bold. You like bold predictions, Eric?
I do.
I just gave you one.
All right, Shane, we're moving on to basketball. By this time next week, Arizona will have its 2 basketball teams in the top 10. Right now, the women are 7, the men are 11.
Yeah, I'll buy that because Arizona, the men and women both have 2 games they should win this week. The following week, I don't know because both teams have tougher tests. Arizona against the men's team against Illinois and the women's team against a ranked Texas team. So I don't know if I would say I would buy it for 2 straight weeks, but for next week, yes, I'm going to go ahead and buy that.
Number 5, the expectations for men's basketball. As of right now, Shane, in your opinion, in I guess the fan base's opinion, are similar to where they were under Sean Miller's teams, let's say TJ McConnell, that era, 2013 to 2015, and I would throw the 2017, 2018 team in there in terms of this team is going to go far. Would you agree that the expectations right now are similar? Buy or sell? Yeah,
I'll buy it. I don't think that they should be. I don't think that's fair to this team. Maybe they are that good. Maybe they'll stay in the top 15, the top 10 all season. Maybe they'll actually contend for the Pac-12 title along with UCLA. But we got such a small sample size still. Okay, we've played just a few games. They've looked good. They've also didn't look so good against Wichita State. Remember, that game could have easily gone the other way. Okay, so let's keep that in mind. They haven't dominated every single opponent. They dominated Michigan. They've blown out every team that they should have blown out, and then some. They've done everything that can be asked of them. I still think there's room for improvement, including shooting, which is great. But so yes, I will buy that the expectations are that high right now. I don't think it's necessarily fair to this team, though, at this point.
I'm going to sell that one, Shane. I just don't think the buzz is out there with the fan base like it was back in the day. I know social media is more prevalent. More people are on Twitter, for example. I just don't see that. I mean, people are excited, but I don't see it at the level that they were when Brandon Ashley, that team in 2013 before he got hurt against Cal, and the 2 teams with Nick Johnson that went to the Elite Eight. I just don't see that. So
I think maybe some fans, though, are guarding their hearts closely because, number one, they've gotten them broken so many times and so many Elite Eights under Sean Miller. And also, we know there are more sanctions coming. Will they be this season? Probably not. Like Bruce Pascoe told us, it probably won't be in time for the season. But we still don't know for sure if they're going to be eligible in March. And then if they are, say they go to the Final Four this year, or they even say they go and win it all this year, will they have a chance to defend that title the following year or the year after that? We don't know.
No one will care. No one will care, Shane.
I understand. I understand that. I'm just saying that I think a lot of fans are cautious right now, even though I do think there are some who are all in and thinking this team should be a Final Four contender at this point. Maybe the excitement isn't necessarily there. Maybe it's 2 different questions. I think between expectations and excitement, I guess the expectations I think are sky high, but the excitement, I think fans are kind of guarding themselves a little bit more cautiously than they used to.
All right, bonus buy or sell question. So I'm going to preface this with former Arizona defensive coordinator Mark Stoops at Kentucky just got a unique kind of extension. And we're recording this on Tuesday, so it happened today. He got, I believe, a 5-year extension where in every year he wins over 7 or more games, 1 year is tacked on. And if he wins 10 or more games at Kentucky, 2 years are tacked on to the deal. So it made me think, buy or sell, Shane, Adia Barnes deserves a lifetime contract for the University of Arizona women's basketball team.
Oh, wow. Oh, you didn't see. Here's the thing for people who are listening. Eric sent me all of the buy or sell questions he was going to ask, except this one. Geez.
This would be easy, Shane.
You think? Yeah. I mean,
life. She got into the finals.
I know.
One shot away from the national.
I know. And well, you know what's even more important, and people forget this, just the fact that they got to the tournament for the first time in 16 years and as a 3 seed is huge, regardless of their run after that. Okay. So, I'm talking myself into buying it. Sure.
Okay.
I think so. If that's something that Arizona could manage, then sure. Yes.
I would love to see Dave Hickey come up with a unique contract offer for Adia Barnes that rewards her, saying, hey, we're going to give you a 10-year deal. And for every year you make the tournament, we're adding 2 more years onto it. Something like that, where you figure out the buyout or something like that, where you make it so that Adia Barnes is not leaving this team for at least 20 to 25 years. You make sure she stays in Tucson. What she has done has been nothing short of unbelievable. And right now the women are number 7 in the country. So you buy that all day. And I hope that the Arizona Athletic Department is listening and somehow comes up and structures something unique for Adia Barnes, because she darn well deserves it.
They make all their decisions based on what we say here on Wildcat Country, Eric. You know that.
If they did, Shane, we probably wouldn't have been 1-11 this year in football. Well, we could have. All right, coming up next, let's talk to Ryan Anderson, who's back in Tucson after a few-year hiatus. We'll find out what he's been up to. Then our buddy Jeff Dean will join us in the last segment here on Wildcat Country, powered by Backcourt Marketing. Shane, now that football season is over, it's all about men's and women's basketball, and really excited to have a new graduate assistant to the Wildcats program. But some of you may remember him from his 1-year stint as an Arizona basketball player in 2015, 2016. Well, you probably should, because he was a first-team All-Pac-12 selection. Ryan Anderson joining us here in Wildcat Country. Ryan, first of all, welcome back to U of A. Glad to have you on the podcast. Just want to ask you, this year's team, thus far, number 11 in the country, crushing Michigan, who was top 5 at the time. Did you expect this team to be this good this quickly?
Coming in, I haven't been around college basketball for some years, so I had just my time in college to kind of compare what we used to be compared to now. And I knew we had a lot of talent. I knew we were young. I knew they had a pretty up and down season last year, but I thought we definitely had talent, and just the way that these guys have been working in the gym and in the classroom and stuff. It's cool to see them have this much success early, because I really do feel like they've earned it, and it's just about keeping it going at this point.
Yeah, Ryan, like Eric said, thanks a lot for joining us. Welcome back to Arizona. I know you suffered a knee injury last year while playing pro ball overseas. If you can you tell us maybe the short version of your journey from that moment to returning to Tucson as a grad assistant?
Yeah, when I first got hurt, obviously it was a whirlwind for me. I got off to a good start in the season, and I was just in my bed, leg up, and Sean Miller gave me a call. Or just reached out, told me, wished me the best. He had been following me, and if he needed anything, just to let him know. And he had kind of tossed out the idea of being a GA and stuff like that. But at the time, I was just in such a whirlwind of emotions. I didn't really take it to heart too much or take it to thought too seriously. And then as all the changes happened with the staff and everything, and Coach Lloyd's first couple of days here, he actually reached out, I guess, the physical trainer here and some former guys that used to be a part of the staff here had left my name on their list of like possible guys for GA, and Coach Lloyd just gave me a call, and I really just felt his energy and his passion for wanting to do something special here. And from there, I kind of just ran with it. I really felt like it would be a great opportunity to learn a new system and be a part of this next chapter of Arizona basketball.
Yeah, would you compare the personalities between Sean Miller and Tommy Lloyd? Like obviously that they're a bit different in some ways. We can just tell from what we see in the press. What are some of the big differences in their personalities and their approach to the game, if any, between Sean Miller and Tommy Lloyd?
The first similarity that I think they both have is their attention to detail. Sean and Tommy both at this level, their attention to detail is so high. They know the game so well. Just being able to sit down and know that I learned a lot from Sean when I was playing, and then being able to be around Tommy and the rest of the staff right now, their attention to detail is just awesome to try to soak it all in. Differences, obviously everyone can kind of see that Tommy's a pretty laid back guy. You know, he cracks jokes. You know, he's big. He has a big heart for not only the players but everyone who's involved with the program and the city. And he's just really engulfing himself in the city of Tucson, which is pretty cool to see. I haven't been around enough to really get a full glimpse of everything yet, but I definitely would just say, yeah, like they're both very, very detail oriented, but I think Tommy brings a little bit more lighthearted spirit, and Sean was more of a, you know, strict kind of personality. So, but they're both two of the best coaches I've ever seen and been around for sure.
One thing we've seen, Ryan, is this locker room, at least via social media, looks like a lot of fun. The players are really soaking it up, just having a blast with the style of Tommy Lloyd, but just, you know, even in their off time, really busting their butts. And we've seen, obviously, as they've risen to number 11, just tell us what it's like behind the scenes, you know, being in that locker room. You're demolishing teams on the court and off the court. It seems like it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great environment to be around. I think Tommy and the rest of the staff have done a great job of coming in from the beginning and creating an environment where we don't cut any corners. We work our tails off every day. I mean, guys come in at 7 a.m. all the way until 7, 8 at night after practices and stuff. They're working their butts off in the classroom, but then we make it a conscious effort to make sure that we enjoy ourselves and have fun, whether it's, you know, Coach Lloyd brought everybody over for Thanksgiving dinner at his place, or, you know, just trying to keep a lighthearted spirit with half court shots at shoot around or stuff like that, where we keep the focus on working hard but having fun. And I think it's just created an environment where all these young talented guys are prepared for the moment, but they know, like, they're just going out and having fun. And at the end of the day, we all do this because we love basketball, and we can't lose focus on the fun aspect of it.
Yeah, Ryan, when you were at Arizona, your one and only season, the team started off hot, kind of like this team did, won 13 of its first 14 games, ranked as high as number 7 nationally. Do you have any advice to this team, or have you offered any? They're still a very young team, on just, you know, staying humble, continuing to work hard, and not basking in their success up to this point.
Yeah, definitely. We actually, I had talked with them a little bit about that yesterday. I was referring to kind of like losing weight. You know, you lose weight, you want to lose 30 pounds, you lose the first 15, and it's hard, but it's doable. But losing that last 5 to 10 pounds and maintaining it is the tough part. And it's similar with our season now. We knew we were talented enough to get into the top 25, but really to make that push into that top 10, but ultimately stay there and be at the end of March, you know, one of the teams that make a run at the tournament is the hard part. And for these young guys, a lot of them, they haven't even experienced, this is their first season with Mikhail, with fans and things like that, because they had COVID year. So they're just there's a lot of new things being thrown at them. And I just told them, you know, as we go on the road in Pac-12, it's the biggest game for a lot of teams that season. It's a new season in Pac-12. There's no easy games. So I'm just trying to, you know, impart on them a little bit of what it's really like to be a ranked Arizona team, because they didn't experience that last year. And then they also didn't have fans. So just trying to give them a little bit of words of wisdom I can. But at the same time, there's no better learning tool than, you know, your own experiences. So they just got to go through it themselves.
You know, at your introductory press conference, you came back to Tucson. You said you'd probably mix it up with some of the current players in practice at some point. Have you had an opportunity to do that? And is there anyone on the court who maybe reminds you a little bit of yourself in any way?
Yeah, I got it in practice every now and then, especially when, you know, if somebody is injured or sick or out for the day or something, we need an extra body. I mean, I'm obviously still young enough to play. And, you know, after my knee injury, you know, I can still play. I'm not dunking and things like I once was, but I can still get up and down and move and obviously help the team. So I get in there a few times here and there, but it's cool, man. I see a lot of myself in a lot of these guys. I mean, like Kim Aiken, I see a lot of myself in, just because he was a transfer from a smaller school, comes here trying to find his way, trying to prove that, you know, he's good enough to be a part of a program like this. And then obviously like Azu, just kind of the way he dominates in his duck-ins and his post-ups and things like that is something I used to take a lot of pride into. So those two guys mainly playing the 4, as a transfer, trying to kind of earn his respect, and then and through his hard work, and then Zoo kind of the way he plays kind of inside and out a little bit, I definitely see some resemblance. Zoo runs the floor better than I did, though, for sure.
Ryan, your collegiate journey was very interesting in that you decided to sit out a year between your junior and senior seasons to come to Arizona. What kind of was that? What made you pull the trigger to come to Arizona and, leave Boston College after 3 pretty successful seasons?
I think it was 2 things for me. One, my coach had got fired at Boston College. Steve Donahue had got fired, and he was the guy that recruited me. And I'm a big loyalty guy, so I was going to stick it out, with the guys that brought me in. But once he got fired, it kind of opened up the door. And then also I needed shoulder surgery at the time. So just kind of knowing that I wouldn't play that year anyways, kind of gave me the opportunity to look at it from a different perspective and possibly come closer to home with a better program and the medical staff here that could help me get my arm back to 100%. I just thought it was a win-win. My redshirt year, I learned so much from that team with TJ McConnell and Stanley Johnson, Rondé, Brandon Ashley. Like, I learned so much from that year, along with getting healthy and being closer to home. I mean, I think it was one of the best decisions I ever made. And, it's from an outsider perspective, it looks weird sitting 1 year just to play, but for me, it was a no-brainer.
Well, it definitely makes sense, and especially since you needed that surgery. Now, when you look back on that 2015-2016 season, what stands out to you?
Man, there were so many great memories. My biggest takeaway probably is a couple of things. I mean, I just wish I would have got a chance to play with Ray Smith more. I don't think Arizona fans will ever understand how talented of a player he was. He had a chance to be, for sure, one of our best players on the team, a starting small forward for us, a guy that had an extreme amount of, NBA potential and things like that. So looking back on that, I wish I would have got to play with him. And then just the togetherness that our group had. I missed just the environment. We didn't have, some of the McDonald's All-Americans or things that you normally would see on an Arizona team. We had Alonzo Trier, who was a highly ranked guy, but for the rest of us, we're kind of just like junkyard dogs, trying to just doing it on our own. And I thought it was cool that we kind of came together as a cool team. And I thought we got a rough matchup in that NCAA tournament. It was a tough matchup against Wichita State, but overall, it was the best year, like I said, of my playing career, and it was a lot of fun.
Ryan, going into the season, I don't think any of us, at least on the outside, put Arizona in the same category as teams like Gonzaga or Duke or even UCLA. And maybe they still have a ways to go to get there. But if they keep this up and keep the same level of play and the same focus that you talked about, how good do you think this team can ultimately be this season?
I mean, I think sky's the limit. I think hard work always prevails in the end, and that's what we've been telling our guys, whether it's individually or as a team. It's just about repetitions, and the repetition of whatever you're doing always builds your reputation. And our repeated acts of just playing hard every day in practice, working hard on your own, and then playing hard in the games. I think if you watch us play, we play hard. We play together. We have a lot of assists, and I think that just allows us to be successful so far early in the season. So I don't see why there's any reason why we can't keep it going and just continue to play well as a team.
All right, my last question for you, and once again, we really do appreciate you taking time to join us. What are your future goals? Can you see yourself as a head coach down the line somewhere? Yeah,
I mean, definitely. Like I said earlier, I'm just thankful that I'm getting a chance to learn this whole new system from such a great staff. I mean, our staff is arguably one of the best in the country. I mean, just from Tommy to Steve Robinson to Jack Murphy to Ricky from the NBA. I mean, we have a great staff. So I'm just trying to soak everything in right now. But yeah, my goal would definitely be to probably try to coach, be a head coach of a school someday. I think the ability to, recruit kids from inner cities, give them a scholarship, change kids' lives in that way. And then obviously just the energy and the passion that a lot of schools like Arizona and other schools around the country have when you get a chance to play at a place like McHale, or you get to go on the road to other places and play in their environments. I mean, it never gets old. It's a great environment. It keeps you feeling young and you see the passion for the game. So I think it's just pure and an awesome environment. And yeah, I would love to be involved in a head coaching role or assistant coaching role as my years go on someday.
Well, we're glad to have you. And one last question that I guess I can't really resist in asking. You had mentioned the Wichita State tournament game, and obviously that was a difficult memory. But one thing that will stand out, and I guess has stood out in social media circles, is Sean Miller's shirt that night. What can you tell us from the player's perspective as to what you were thinking looking at Coach?
I mean, people don't maybe not have realized it, but all season long, Sean always was sweating through his shirt. He usually had two shirts at McHale. Like, he would change at halftime. A lot of the times in the games, he would come in a different shirt to start the second half. I think it was just a combination of being on the road for an NCAA tournament game, so not having an extra shirt, and that game being very, very stressful for all of us. I think it was just a bad combination, but it turned out to be, a lot of memes and a lot of social media jokes and stuff like that. But I mean, Sean's as passionate as it comes in the business. So if you're around him enough, it comes from a great place, a great heart of just being ultra competitive and wanting to win. And sometimes you sweat through your shirt or stuff like that. So, but I guess that was one funny thing that came from that game.
It will last in the memedom world forever. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us. Great to catch up with you. Glad to have you on the staff back at U of A, and hope to have you back on Wildcat Country again soon.
Yeah, no worries, guys. Thanks for having me.
I want to read you a message from Josette, a small business owner in Scottsdale. Josette says, Backcourt Marketing created a social media strategy for all of my gyms. They post engaging content every day and have really brought up the analytics on all of my pages. We meet to go over marketing ideas every month, and I really appreciate their personalized approach. That, in a nutshell, is the kind of return on your investment that you can expect when you trust Backcourt Marketing to fulfill your company's social media needs. This is a company that helps businesses reach their target audience online and build a brand that will crush the competition. They're a dedicated, knowledgeable team of brand advocates, designers, and creative writers who will help take your business to the next level. Make sure to get your business noticed. Call 480-744-6173. That's 480-744-6173. Or email team, TEAM, at backcourtmarketing.com to get started. And remember, Backcourt Marketing is the marketing agency for those who love competition.
Shane, very cool to have Ryan Anderson join us here in the last segment, and good to catch up with him and find out what he's doing these days, and obviously making an impact on the undefeated number 11 ranked Arizona men's basketball team. Speaking of the Arizona men's basketball team and football team, their public address announcer, the voice of U of A, outside of Brian Jeffries, Jeff Dean, going to join us here for the last segment to do some picks with us. And Jeff has been absent from the football and basketball games for the last couple of weeks, but he will be back soon enough. Jeff, glad to have you with us. And just first of all, your thoughts on what you saw from the football team in the last month. They got the win over Cal, but obviously the ASU game didn't go so well. Just your thoughts on the future, and are you optimistic, or are you still kind of guarded about what we saw?
Yeah, I think for the first time since the last time we won a territorial cut game, I feel like this program is galvanized from top to bottom, whether it, going all the way to the top, in the president's office with Dr. Robbins. I feel like this program, from Dr. Robbins to athletic director Hickey to the coaching staff, to the players, to the support staff, I feel like everyone is kind of seeing the same vision and having the same focus, which is obviously super important for a large program, especially in a Power 5 conference the way that Arizona is right now. There were certainly some encouraging things to take away from the last few games of the season. At least we didn't end on a 7-game losing streak, a la Stanford. Stanford looked really, really bad at the end of the year. I think if we'd have played Stanford, I think we would have beat them.
Yeah, it's a shame we didn't get a chance to play them, I was going to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly with their weaknesses that they had this year, I think Arizona would have beat that team by 2 touchdowns. There was obviously glaring issues with this team. There were a lot of growing pains. There were situations where Jedd Fisch would call a timeout because they had 12 men on the field, and then they'd run the play with 10 men on the field. There were just issues like that, all over the place. And, unfortunately for this particular team, this season's team, the level of competition that they were able to put up against other teams just was lackluster, just because of a complete lack of talent. I talked to a scout from the Atlanta Falcons before the season began, and he just basically told me the team is talentless. There's no NFL talent on this team. It's not a Power 5 talent team. They were competing in a Power 5 conference with a at best a middling group of 5 level of talent. So that needs to upgrade, obviously, immediately, this offseason, and they will. I mean, the recruiting class looks good. And I think Jedd Fisch and I think the staff learned a lot from this year as well. I think one of the areas of market improvement that we saw throughout the season was Brendan Carroll and his ability to get the offensive line kind of working together as a unit, regardless of who was out there, because there were so many times and situations where players would be shuffled in and out. Starting centers were playing left tackle. I mean, it was a complete mess for as far as injuries go. And you can't really blame injuries on any particular football season. Every football team has them. But I'm still very optimistic about next season's team. We'll see what happens in the off season. They've had a few guys enter the transfer portal. We wish them well. And we'll replace them with somebody else, whether it be from a recruiting standpoint or from the transfer portal itself.
Yeah, we've talked about Arizona, this team just not being good enough to overcome injuries or mistakes like penalties, red zone mistakes, or Pac-12 officiating in the case of a blatant misholding penalty against ASU, but that's another story. Let me ask you about the men's hoops team. I know you're anxious to get back to McHale and call those games. Hopefully you'll be able to do that soon, but undefeated, and they didn't just beat Michigan, they whooped up on them. Few of us saw this coming. Jeff, did you?
Yeah, the last time we talked, I had a great amount of optimism for this team, and I don't remember exactly what I said, but I know that I still feel the same way that I did when we talked then. And there's no guarantee that UCLA is going to win the Pac-12. I mean, who's to say that Arizona can't win the Pac-12? They're certainly talented enough. It appears that Tommy Lloyd knows what he's doing as a head coach, because this team. I use this example. Arizona beat Rio Grande Valley by 56 points or whatever it was, and it took a Herculean effort by Kofi Coburn, a preseason All-American at Illinois. He had to score 36 points to finally put them away in Champaign just a few nights ago. And that's I think they were number 10 or 9th ranked team in the country at the time. So, this team doesn't just beat their opponents, they drub their opponents. And they do it in the style that Tommy Lloyd wants to play. He wants to play high efficiency offense. He wants to get a lot of ball movement. He wants a high assist efficiency. They're the number 1 assist team in the entire country. And I think the most surprising thing about this team is they're the number 2 team out of 358 schools playing D1 basketball. They're the number 2 defensive rating team in the entire country, which is remarkable and speaks volumes about what Christian Coloco does as a rim protector. He is just absolutely incredible. And I felt all along that he would be considered a finalist for the Pac-12 Defensive Player of the Year. And I think as of right now, I think he'd be considered a finalist for the National Defensive Player of the Year. He's that good.
So, Jeff, Shane and I talked about this earlier in the show. What is the ceiling, in your opinion, for this team? How far can they go?
I mean, I think at this point, when you talk about what are there 20 teams remaining in college basketball that have an unblemished record, and I know that they haven't played a true road game yet, and they've got a couple coming up, Champaign and Knoxville coming up. Those are 2 ranked teams. Those are going to be big tests for Arizona. They got Colorado coming up. The Pac-12 season is going to be starting. So They have some true road games coming up. That'll tell us a little bit more about this team. That's the next step. But as far as the ceiling for this team, I mean, honestly, who knows? I mean, when you look at how deep they are in the front court and how well the backcourt is playing, and outside of the game against Wichita State, where I think they had 24 turnovers in that game, their assist-to-turnover ratio is best in the country. So when you play basketball like that, and if they can continue to play the defense that they've played, who knows? I mean, UCLA made a deep run last year as an 11 seed. If Arizona gets a favorable seed, and basketball is all about matchups and execution, if this team can find a way to shoot the ball a little bit better, which would be remarkable, because they're already scoring, 91 points a game. Who knows? Final Four, championship game. Who knows? I mean, that's a definite ceiling for a team that's as talented as this Arizona team is.
And there you go, right there. I hope that just made everyone's day like it made mine. I mean, we were already excited enough, but to say, we hadn't really mentioned Final Four yet.
Jeff, Eric's going to twist your words, and when Arizona doesn't make the Final Four, he's going to say, that. Jeff, you predicted it. What happened?
He did not know. He said the ceiling is, which is the question.
That's what you're going to do, though.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's make some football picks, and see if I can gain. I'm 3 games behind Shane. We're not picking any Arizona games this week, so that's we're not going to agree on those. But I need to differ on 3 of them from you, Shane. So I'm going to let you pick before me on at least a few of them. We're going to let Jeff start on this one. The only, I guess it's the only non-conference championship game that's being played this weekend from the postponement a few weekends ago. USC at Cal, 2 teams that are playing for nothing. USC, obviously, with Lincoln Riley coming next year, going to be huge for them. Jeff, where are you going in this one? It's just a toss-up if I've ever seen one.
Yeah, it's a weird situation, right? Where they have the makeup game kind of at the end of the year. Neither of these teams, as you mentioned, have anything to play for. I wouldn't be surprised if Cal wins the football game. And I'll pick USC just because I think talent will overcome eventually. Jackson Dart has played extremely well in the last few games. The defense has been absolutely horrible for USC, but Cal's offense isn't exactly lighting up the scoreboard either. So I'll take USC.
Shane, is USC back now with Lincoln Riley? And will those guys, is it kind of like an audition week for them? Or are you taking Justin Wilcox and the Bears?
I'll take USC. It has nothing to do with Lincoln Riley being the head coach yet. But simple reason for me, for whatever reason, USC's kind of been like the Cardinals in the NFL. They've been playing better on the road. They've been awful at home most of the season. So I think that, neither team has much to play for, but I think, maybe they're energized a little bit now. They're the more talented team. I think both teams have vastly underachieved. Cal lost a lot of close games earlier in the season. Of course, lost to Arizona. You give them a mulligan because they're out a bunch of players. But true road game. I always start off by picking the road team, which is never a good sign. But I am going to go with USC.
Well, I'm going to go double not so fast on both of you. I'm taking Cal in this one. I just think Wilcox, they've had a rough year. Didn't look so good against UCLA in the second half last week. I think they bounced back and beat the other Southern Cal school, which is already checked out. So I'm taking the Golden Bears in this one. Mountain West Championship game. Utah State, who beat Washington State in week 1, against San Diego State, who I believe I was the one to pick Arizona to beat San Diego State earlier in the year. And by the way, Arizona's first game next year is in San Diego State's new stadium. So the non-conference schedule does not get easier, and I'm sure Shane and I will talk about that often during the offseason here. But all right, Shane, I'll let you start. Utah State and San Diego State, where are you going in this game?
I'll go with the Aztecs. And I'm certainly impressed with what we saw out of San Diego. You consider Arizona was in most games they played this season, in some point in the second half and often in the fourth quarter. Even the ASU game where they failed to get in the end zone in the first half, it was still a 1-possession game in the third quarter, and they had a chance to make it close again, and they threw the pick 6, and that was it. So San Diego State is one of the few teams that really put a whooping on the Wildcats this year, which is kind of weird to say, but it's true. So I'll go with San Diego State. It would be nice to at least see a team that beat Arizona finish strong, and I think they will.
Jeff, how about you? Where are you going with this one?
Yeah, I'm going to go Aztecs as well. They're a pretty heavy favorite in this game. I think 6.5. Is the spread in this one. The defense has been really, really good for the Aztecs. Kurt Maddox, the defensive coordinator, runs that 3-3-5. And usually you don't see a whole lot of pressure out of a 3-3-5, but lo and behold, their pass rusher, whose name is escaping me at the moment, I talked about it over the weekend. Their pass rusher actually leads the entire country in quarterback pressures this year. So they get after the quarterback. They stop the run really well. Greg Bell, the running back, future NFL running back, has had a little fumbleitis here in the second half of the season, and they've had a lot of inconsistent play at quarterback. But that defense is so good. I think they're able to shut down Utah State.
I really want to pick Blake Anderson's Utah State team. They have a dynamic offense and really showed up strong late in the season for the most part I think it was a blip against Wyoming, but I'm going to take San Diego State really close, guys, real close one. All right. Cincinnati and Houston in the AAC championship game. I'll tell you what, I have gone back and forth on this game often. I'm going to take Cincinnati, but close. I know that the line is 10.5. I'm talking really, really close. Anywhere between 1 and 4 points. Jeff, am I crazy? Does Houston have a shot in this game?
Yeah, Houston's got a real shot in this game. And considering all of the noise that's happening around the Cincinnati program right now, we don't know exactly what's going to happen. We know that Luke Fickell is a target of Notre Dame. There may be some residual noise with the players and such where they get a little bit out of focus. And, there's a possibility where Houston in that explosive offense can score early, get an early lead, and Cincinnati's having to play catch up. I believe in Cincinnati as a whole. They play all three facets extremely well. I think they win the game. I think right around what you're saying. I think right around 3 to 5 points, somewhere around their final score.
Shane?
Oh, man. I'm torn between who I want to pick and you not being able to catch me. But I was actually going to go with Houston in this one.
I like it. That's a good pick.
It's real simple for me. It's tough to go undefeated. It really is. And Cincinnati dodged a lot of bullets earlier in the season. When the college game day was there, they barely got past, was it Tulsa? Had to have a last minute goal line stand to beat them. So I think Houston is an underrated team because they're not a Power 5 team. And I think that I would love to see Cincinnati in the college football playoff. It'd be a breath of fresh air, them and maybe Oklahoma State and Michigan. It'd be great to see some new teams. I just have a feeling that Cincinnati's run is going to end this weekend.
It's interesting, which I didn't realize until today. Apparently, if Cincinnati loses to Houston in this game, there is a chance they may not end up in a big bowl game. There's a chance that San Diego State, as the highest ranked conference champion, would then end up in the Fiesta Bowl. So in a way, with Fiesta Bowl, the fact that I have tickets there, I guess I want Cincinnati to win, but close game. I hope Houston keeps this one close. Pitt and Wake Forest in the ACC championship game. Shane, I'll let you start with this one. You might as well flip a coin. A lot of people picking Pitt, but I'm not as certain here.
Yeah, Wake Forest can score 50 points a game, they'd be good, but I think that they're finally starting to come down to earth a little bit. I kind of like Pitt. I think that they've been probably the most consistent team in the ACC all season. Maybe not the best team week in and week out, but I think they're a little more consistent, a little more even keel, a little more well-balanced of a team on both sides of the ball. So I'm going to go with Pitt.
Jeff?
Yeah, 100% agree, actually. That's exactly it. They're a much more well-balanced team on both sides of the ball. And look, this is going to be a fun quarterback showdown between Kenny Pickett and Sam Hartman. Sam Hartman can really sling it. But I think some of the problems that we expected to see from a team who comes out like gangbusters the way that Wake Forest did, kind of took some teams by surprise, had a few early upsets, scored 1 million points on people. Defenses kind of started to figure them out, started to play certain coverages that were confusing Sam Hartman, and he was throwing a lot of interceptions. And I saw a lot of drop interceptions as well against Wake Forest this year. I just think there's just too many mistakes lurking for the Demon Deacons. So I like Pitt big, actually.
All right, this is one of those games where I have to differ from Shane on a few of them. I don't have a good feeling, and every time I pick Pitt, they lose or don't play well. So I'm going to go with Wake Forest here. I don't really have any great analysis. I think they're going to have to win 45-35 or 45-42. One of those crazy games where, they get some pressure on Kenny Pickett and Sam Hartman doesn't make mistakes, as you said, Jeff. So I'm going to take Wake in a mild upset in this one. Do you see
I will say this. I will say this real quick, if I may. If there's bad weather, I worry about Pitt because I watched Kenny Pickett in a bad weather game this year in a game where there was a lot of rain. He is
North Carolina.
Not a good bad weather quarterback. He cannot throw a wet football. That's a problem. So if there's weather this weekend, there could be an issue.
I have not looked at the forecast for Charlotte, so for now we'll assume it's good weather. Big 12 championship game. This one really matters. If Oklahoma State wins and looks good, they're in the college football playoff, I would think, over Notre Dame and or Alabama. Shane, Oklahoma State, Baylor, where are you going in this one?
I do think this is the two best teams in the Big 12. With respect to Oklahoma, I think they were number 3, even though they almost pulled off the upset, or not. I guess it wasn't sort of an upset in Stillwater. I'm going to go with the Cowboys. I think I predicted last week they're going to be in the college football playoff, and I'm not going to back out of that now. I watched the second half. They're a resilient team. They're a good defensive team, probably better than they showed against Oklahoma. They beat Baylor already. I don't think Baylor's quite at the same level as the Cowboys. I'm going to go with OK State.
Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Oklahoma State's defense this year, they were just so dominant. Number 1 in overall defense, number 1 in rushing defense, number 2 in pass efficiency defense. They were number 1 and 2 in the country in, I think, 7 different defensive categories, which is absolutely remarkable. Usually that's reserved for teams like Alabama, and you would think that Georgia would be in that situation. But Oklahoma State was statistically, according to that, for the most part, the best or the second best or tied for the best defensive team in the entire country. Super, super impressive job by Mike Gundy there, because knowing that he wasn't going to have a dynamic quarterback and a dynamic passing game like you normally see in Stillwater, he relied on the defense, and they showed up big time. And I like what Dave Aranda is doing at Baylor. That is a very, very well-disciplined team. They do not hurt themselves, which is going to make this a close game. But I like the Cowboys.
Yeah, let me just add real quick, Eric, if I remember right, Oklahoma State didn't give up a single point on defense in the second half against OU.
Correct.
OU scored 9 points. There was off a muff punt and then a safety.
Yep.
So they blanked Oklahoma in the second half.
Yep. Yeah, very good defense. You guys said I'll take Oklahoma State in this game. I think Baylor's a tad overrated. Well disciplined, as Jeff said. I just don't think they're all that great. They lost to BYU. Remember? BYU lost to them. I'm sorry. They're the ones keeping BYU out of a New Year's Day bowl game, which is interesting. I still don't think they're that good. I'll take Oklahoma State by double digits in this one. All right, the 3 biggies, at least in the last one is big for us, but the 2 biggest games here. The Big Ten championship game, which is a game that with 2 teams that neither of us would have predicted would have been in the game as of last week, I don't think. Michigan and Iowa. I mean, I was big on Ohio State. I thought Ohio State was the second best team in the country, and they got rolled by Michigan. Iowa really was outplayed by Nebraska for 3 quarters and somehow snuck in with a comeback from behind win, and then Wisconsin not showing up in Minnesota. I think Michigan rolls in this one. Jeff, can you disagree with that?
No, I can't disagree with it. In fact, I'm still kind of nursing a shoulder injury from patting myself on the back because after week 5, I predicted that Michigan would finally beat Ohio State this year. That Harbaugh would get off the schneid
Good pick.
And beat Ohio State. I liked the chemistry of the team. I just liked the makeup. Ohio State wasn't able to tackle anybody all year on defense, really. And the way that Michigan was playing football, that was going to be a huge problem. And we saw that. And that game was not as close as the score indicated either. Michigan really kicked their butt in that game. And, Iowa is one of those teams that, you see it every year out of Kirk Ferentz. They do really well early because they're always a highly experienced team, obviously a well-coached team, but they're not dynamic. And they're able to capitalize on other teams' mistakes. And then later in the year, when teams kind of figure out, let's just not make mistakes against these guys and we'll be okay. Michigan doesn't make a whole lot of mistakes. And as long as Jim Harbaugh doesn't fart around too much with changing the quarterback situation out left and right and having the freshmen come in and throw interceptions or fumble the football or stuff like that, if they just play the status quo, they'll win this game by 2.5 touchdowns.
Big. Shane, you agree that Michigan will blow out here?
Yeah, and then to Jeff's point, that's why they lost to Michigan State. They got too cute there at the end and blew it. And they're clearly a better team than Michigan State. They really should have gone undefeated this season. Remember earlier in the year when I think number 3 Iowa beat number 4 Penn State?
Yes.
Seems like a long time ago.
Yes.
But, Iowa's ranked 16? They're always ranked somewhere around there. They're always in that next tier. And they haven't done anything to suggest that they're really out of that. I don't think they have the offense to keep up with Michigan. Their defense is decent. I think it could be a low-scoring game for maybe a half, 3 quarters, maybe a one-possession game going into the 4th quarter. But I think Michigan's going to bust it open at some point.
All right, the game of the year, no doubt about that. This could be the national championship game for all intents and purposes. Georgia and Alabama, number 1 against probably number 3. We are recording this before the college football rankings come out on Tuesday night. So, all right, Jeff, I'm going to start with you on this one. Georgia, Alabama. Georgia has been by far the best team in college football this year. Alabama should have lost if Auburn's running back knew not to go out of bounds in the final 2 minutes on Saturday. I'm taking Georgia in this one. Where are you going?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that. If Tank Bigsby just slides and doesn't go out of bounds, Auburn wins that football game. Mike Bobo has an offensive coordinator's job, on the Plains today still.
Yep.
A lot of things are very, very different in college football. If one little play that no coaching member, really had much of a say in, I'm sure they probably all told them all just stay in bounds and don't get out of bounds. But, those things that happen when you're talking about kids playing football. So, this game, honestly, this is a lopsided matchup. And Georgia is starting to play some really good offense. Their running game is starting to get clicking. They seem to have found a go-to wide receiver that they can rely on. And Pickens is coming back. He did get one catch in the game against Georgia Tech last week. He is expected to be a full go for Alabama this weekend in the SEC championship game. I just think Georgia smashes Alabama, and I think it's been a long time coming.
Shane, Georgia hasn't given up hasn't given up more than 17 points in any game this season, I believe. Does Alabama score more than 17? And if so, do they have a chance to win this game?
No, probably not. I think the only way Georgia loses is if they decide to take their foot off the gas, like, oh, we're already in. But I just can't imagine that happening. There's so much on the line in this game, and Kirby Smart's not going to, let them take a possession off. I think that even if Alabama gets up early, I think Georgia has more than enough talent to rally. So I'm going to go with Georgia. Unfortunately, if I'm right about the Cincinnati-Houston pick, I think Alabama is still going to sneak into the college football
over
playoff.
Notre Dame.
I think a 2-loss Alabama team would lost us to A&M and Georgia would probably get in over Notre Dame.
Unimpressive wins over Arkansas and Auburn. Boy,
I'm not saying that's what should happen. I'm saying that's what I think will happen. I would love to see Cincinnati get in, but I think they lose. I think Alabama loses to Georgia, but they still get in as that fourth team.
All right, don't forget, Alabama was down 3-0 to New Mexico State at home. So that's,
Jeff providing the context we needed in that with that pick. All right, finally, last pick, the Pac-12 championship game. Two teams that faced off a couple weeks ago. Shane and I had this one pegged correctly the first time around. Oregon and Utah now playing in Las Vegas. Ironically, a location where there is no Pac-12 team. Which, hey, I like it though. It's fun playing it at the new stadium. Utah, Oregon. Shane, I'll let you make the first pick on this one. Do the Ducks get revenge?
It's tough because I remember, and I might have even said it during our podcast, that I thought that Utah was going to win the game in Salt Lake, but Oregon would win the rematch. But Utah clobbered them so badly that I don't know if I could go with the Ducks at this point. I think I might have to switch to Utah. I think that they do have the best overall defense in the conference. ASU, it should have been ASU, but it's not. Oregon has not. They haven't blown out teams this year for the most part. Even Oregon State made a late rally in what the game formerly called the Civil War. Even Arizona with Jordan McLeod throwing 5 interceptions. There was a 1-possession game going into the fourth quarter. I think Utah is playing better. They're not the more talented team, but they're playing better right now on both sides of the ball. So I think it's going to be a closer game, but I think Utah ekes out the win.
Jeff, do you agree with Shane, or are you going to agree with me? Well, who I'll give my pick in a second.
I think you just did.
Who are you taking in this one?
I was watching, as I was watching the Territorial Cup game, the Civil War game was off to my left there, and I was peeking in on that anytime there was a break in the action in Tempe. And what I saw from Oregon was an extremely fast football team. And, we knew they were fast, but even against a really well-coached team at Oregon State and a team that's constructed a lot the same way that Utah is, we saw a lot of team speed coming to fruition for Oregon. And I think they kind of found their stride in that game. And I think even though we saw the blowout occur a few weeks ago, when the Utes the game was over at halftime. That game was an absolute runaway. I think it's going to be a little bit closer this time around. And again, there's some noise around the Oregon program. Mario Cristobal may be looking to move on somewhere, but, take another job somewhere, leave Oregon. I don't know why. But those are some of the rumors that are happening. And of course, kids read the headlines and, they start to believe things and rumors start rolling through the locker room, and it could mess up their focus a little bit. But I just love the way Kyle Whittingham coaches this football team. They'll be ready for anything. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I don't even think it's going to be really a back and forth game. I just think it's going going to be really tight the whole way. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game than what we've seen in the past, or what maybe we might be expecting. But I do like Utah to win the game.
I'm going to take Oregon. To beat the same team twice in 3 weeks just seems very, very difficult, whether it's pro or college. And I think Oregon bounces back. And the one thing, Utah has never been to the Rose Bowl, obviously. And the rumor is that if they do make the Rose Bowl, Kyle Whittingham will hang it up, which would be very interesting. And I would assume that Morgan Scalley, who's their defensive coordinator, would be the replacement. Seems like an obvious fit there. So you won't have any coaching drama one way or the other. But we will find out. Jeff, as always, great to have you on. Wishing you get in good health. And we can't wait to hear you back as the voice of McHale Center here soon.
Thank you, guys. My pleasure. Looking forward to it, man. I want to see that basketball team in action up close and personal again.
Definitely a lot to be excited about this year. Want to thank Ryan Anderson, grad assistant for that basketball team, for joining us earlier. Want to thank our great sponsor, Backcourt Marketing. Check them out on Twitter. They had some great tweets during the ASU game at Backcourt MKTG, or check them out at backcourtmarketing.com. And then our friends at All AZ Sports for producing the podcast as they do every week. So for Shane Dale, I'm Eric Cohen. Have a great week. And as always, bear down.
Bear down.